Same. My name is Geoff Wood. It's a Geoffwood.
All right. Where do you live, and have you always lived here?
I live in the Des Moines metro area. A specific suburb is called Windsor Heights. It's a very, I don't know how much you want me to talk. Is this just background questions?
Well, this is,
Okay.
Trying
Trying to get a feel. Yeah.
who you are. So, have you always lived here?
I have not.
So where else have you lived?
Tennessee is kind of where I was born. Been in Iowa most of my life, other than 5 years I was in Indianapolis. But we've been back now for 10 or 12. Is that right? Yeah. '09 we moved back.
What would you miss if you had to leave the Metro Des Moines area?
If I had to go like outside of the state, grocery stores that we have. I remember moving to Indiana and going to like Albertsons and is it like Marsh or something like that, and like they're not Hy-Vees. And I think because I grew up with Hy-Vee, like that's my expectation level set for a grocery store. So when I go to places that don't have that specific chain, I'm just like, these don't feel right to me. You know, when you're traveling or whatever and you do that. Similarly, I think like the urban design standards in Des Moines, like how the streets are laid out, where there's curb, where there's not, the way buildings are, like it's just what I'm used to. So I remember I lived in Omaha for about 6 months, like in 2002. Omaha has different design standards from Des Moines. So you just know you're in a different city based on like walking through downtown and how it feels different.
So, what is it that you do for a living, a livelihood? What is the thing that you do?
Yeah, generate income from a co-working business called Gravitate Co-working. We have 2 locations in Metro Des Moines. We're getting ready to, hopefully, fingers crossed, in a few months we'll open our first rural one in a town of 400 people called Jefferson, Iowa, very near Carroll, as some people know, the western side of the state. But they are traditional co-working businesses. They're not niche or like focused on a certain industry. We take all folks. I think people think of us kind of a tech startup space, but we have people like right over here. We have the pastor of a church that has a desk. Like we have marketing people. We have people that do like are members of big like construction teams that have their Des Moines office with us. So that's where the income comes in. The reason people think of us as a tech and startup space is because that's the area I was in before this for about 10 years. And not as a startup founder so much, but more as a startup advocate, wanting to do like grassroots economic development through creating new companies. So that's probably still where my head is at. Like when I think of myself, I'm still part of the startup community, even though my business, which was formed, Gravitate Co-working, to give startups a place originally to do their work is much broader than that now.
So, in 2 words or less, how would you describe the year 2020, and then explain why you chose those 1 or 2 words?
2 words or less? I feel like you're begging me to say shit show right there. What was the second part of the question?
Why would you choose that?
It's just amazing. So I'm trying not to use Facebook for political reasons now, like just how that company's behaving. But like it's really hard not to, because that's where it connects with. And one of the reasons that I do use it is to see like benchmark where you were at and the today in your Facebook history thing. And something came up today actually that was like the French term for, I don't remember what it was, but it was something I had posted of like it was like French for the malady of the age, like the literal feeling of world weariness you have just by the way society is. It was like a 1700s word that had somehow shown up. And like, I feel like that was 2018 and I was like, man, things are rough. And now, I've seen a lot of people joke about like when historians study 2020, they will focus on months, not years. You won't be a 2020 scholar, you'll be this was the pandemic. So I'm a March to June to whenever scholar. Or this was the, Black Lives Matter movement really taking hold. So I'm that type of thing. And, but yeah, crazy. And like, we're only like a couple of weeks away from being halfway through. So who knows what's yet to come.
So describe the moment COVID-19 became real to you, and then how did that make you feel when it became real?
Well, I think there's a couple of factors of realness, but I started taking it seriously we kind of mostly closed the businesses on that Monday after, I feel like Friday the 13th was that week, and then that next Monday. So I was listening to a podcast, probably like The Daily or something from the New York Times, that was talking about like on that Thursday before, like, here's how it's spreading, and here's like we're getting past contact tracing and things like that, because we didn't really have any in Iowa that had been diagnosed. I think it came like it was a cruise ship that a bunch of people from Iowa City had gone on, is where it kind of started. But they had mentioned something in that podcast about like the first things that people in Wuhan ran out of were like hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and bottled water. And so like I was talking to my wife about it, and she's like, we need to run a Sam's Club. So like we did that I think we did it Friday afternoon. Like I took the afternoon off and just kind of got ready, but was still not thinking too seriously about it. But then, all of a sudden, like the governor declared that we're not contact tracing, or we've got to community spread, I think she said that weekend. And so we shut the businesses down. We didn't come back Monday. We never had a statewide order here to like shut down, even though I think a lot of people were like waiting for that to happen. So what we did was locked the doors. Our members have access keys. So it's kind of like you could use it as your own risk. If you feel fine coming in, you're welcome to do it. Please don't come in if you're sick. But we pulled our staff out, other than they would come kind of restock and sort the mail and things like that once a day. So I would say it was that Monday, which I feel like was the 16th or 15th, somewhere around there in March. Yeah, emotions were like, I think it was fear for the business, because like I thought I'd prepped pretty well for where like society was going. So we're building a business because people are disconnecting like where they live from where they work, and they're going to need social hubs to plug into, and co-working is still really nascent in Iowa. So like people are looking at us as experts. We'll have the kind of pick of the places we want to expand and grow this business into, to like one day immediately, like that Monday when things started to shut down, like members started canceling right away. Startups that are here that were like in the event industry were like, we have no revenue. Like we just lost it all because South by Southwest is canceled, and we do things for them, and Bonnaroo's canceled. We do, like those types of things. So that was really scary, and I don't know that we're really past that. We took a PPP loan from the government, which has helped us survive to this point, and I think that's a solid program. I know it was kind of rolled out in a weird way, but like as a small business owner to use that, pretty excited. Like that we've had our whole team employed and everything. All the way through because of that. And so there was that, but it was also kind of like, maybe this will be fun, a different way to get to know our team. We'll do online happy hours with our members. We'll do twice daily like check-ins with our team members. Our members being our customers, but like our team members will do twice daily customers check-ins with them. And we have continued to do that, but like that stuff gets old. Just being a weird internet person, like I decided to like take a picture of my coffee mug every day on Instagram and go through and be like, just kind of think to myself, like, does the pandemic end before my supply of coffee mugs at home ends? Answer's no. I ran out of coffee mugs in I think it was about 2 months. But just like the things that were like, oh, we're doing things differently, we'll adapt to it. It's kind of like doing something different. It has its own energy to it. Like that's all gone now. And it's just like, I just wanted to go back. And now it's scary because we know nothing has changed, right? There's no therapeutics that really work on this. There's no vaccine or whatever, but people are just bored at home. So they've decided that we're going to be okay with 1,000 people dying and we'll just go back to work. And like the government in this state has not, they keep, about their most like salient point with how to like fight this is like use your best judgment. But like as a business owner, I look at Polk County's health site, which says look at the Iowa Department of Public Health site, and they say look at the CDC, but none of them say anything besides like what they say on the news, like wear masks, stand 6 feet apart. But they don't order it; they just like suggest it. So how's your daily life changed? How did it change at first, and how did that affect you emotionally? Daily life changed. We live in a small house built in the 30s, so not necessarily the place that my wife and I and our almost 11-year-old and our 3-year-old lab like expected to spend 24 hours together for many, many, many days in a row. So that took adjusting. We went to my wife's office and like took her standing desk down, and we had one at home. So like it's an old house, as I said, it's like an old house. So it's got like a refinished attic, which has always just been our bedroom. with the desk in it in case one of us had to like work at home. Now, like we stay in that room for 20 hours and we just kind of like switch between the two desks, like who gets the nicer desk that day. But it also feels like, I have friends that, I have a lot of friends who are business owners because of the nature of like the startup stuff, but like the restaurant owners were really hurt because of like not being able to do capacity, but at least they had something to pivot to and put their energy behind of like, we'll do carry out and we'll work on this. But like, there's not really a carry out version of co-working. So there's a lot of time and I don't often thank my health insurance company, but they did go to telehealth being 100% covered during this. So lots of therapy, virtual therapy, but so I've talked about this a lot of like, it's just tough to feel like I'm not necessarily sometimes working towards something and like I don't have the answer. I'm always like, even if it's wrong, I kind of just like move on to what the next thing is for like, okay, we've solved this problem, so it's Jed Bartlett, like, okay, what's next? Like that type of attitude, but I just don't know what's next at this point. So that's not something that sits well with me.
So is there anything that you changed in your daily patterns, habits that you plan to keep once things kind of go to some sort of normal?
Good question. I got up every day of at least my adult life, probably going back to like middle school, and like showered and washed my hair every day. And I've learned I don't have to do that. And my hair's a lot longer now than it was when this started. But I think that's a thing where like, it was just like, I just always did that. Like I'll probably still shower, but like, I don't think I have to wash my hair every day. It's weird because like, I never thought about that. But if I'm not going to see people, like what's the point of that, So that would probably be a thing. Oh, I'm walking a ton. I hope I can keep that up. So, I've worked really hard on my health in the last year. And a lot of that was like diet-based, like eating better and everything. It was pretty successful with it. And then I realized real quick that like, if I'm just in my bedroom 20 hours out of the day, like I get 1,000 steps instead of 10,000. So started walking. It was also like, we have to get out of the house. So luckily I have a 3-year-old lab who just loves to go on walks. So we're doing 3 to 5 to 7 mile walks a day, which has been awesome. So I think the reason I've been able to kind of stay healthy and continue to like improve my health. And if there's ever a time to be healthy, it's like at any point your lungs could be attacked, right? So like might as well meet that charge being healthy instead of just like eating a bunch of sugar and drinking a bunch of booze. Although there's a lot of booze. Anyway, yeah. So like I use like a Fitbit and then like a activity tracker that like tracks my like a GPS route. I've done over 300 miles since this started, just really in my neighborhood. And I don't want to run for office, but I kind of feel like I know everybody's house now too, because the town's pretty small. It's 4,000 people in between Des Moines and West Des Moines. It's like, I'm sure if I ever had a door knock, like I've been past this house 15 times, So I think that's a thing that I should keep up, but it's also like the time of the year that works. So in Iowa in February, like I'm not gonna be walking 3 miles a day outside with the dog. Dog would be up for it, I wouldn't be.
So what's the biggest challenge that you've had because of the pandemic? And how does it compare to any other big challenges you faced before?
Probably anxiety. Like I've had some anxiety, but like I don't think anxiety is how I make decisions, but like I kind of feel that. Like, and it's not just the pandemic, but it's the response to the pandemic, and it's the protests, and it's the things like that. It's feeling like, if I was 25, I would be protesting. At 42, like I'm just not, my wife and I were talking about today because there's a specific march today for her profession. And I was like, I don't really want to go stand around much, even with a mask on, like to like do that. Just anxiety. We are this office that we're sitting in right here is middle of downtown Des Moines, a block away from here. The first night that there were protests here, like a bunch of windows got broken. It's still all boarded up down the street. So there was a lot of anxiety and like checking our security cameras for every day for about 2 weeks, many times, like overnight to see like. And that's anxiety for the business, but it's also like empathy for the people that are protesting and why they are. And I have to remind myself that like it's really just furniture in here. Like, it's all replaceable. So if something were to happen, like windows were to get busted, if you like, it's all fine, but it's still not a thing that you just like, well, somebody call me if it, like, I just can't like let it go. I still have to like, so it just, all of those things, you know, and it's a never, and like we kind of just move on from things, because I don't know who I was talking to about this the other day, but like the Australian wildfire story, where it's like this is like this catastrophic event. Like, I don't even know what's happening with that. Did they put them out? Like that seemed to like run right into the pandemic, where like this is a thing that's like going to set a continent back, if not less the world. And then like then we didn't hear about it. And then when the protests started, we didn't hear about coronavirus response for a long time. And I consume a lot of news, so like I'm looking for that stuff. But it doesn't stop, right? There's always something next to it. And yeah, I don't feel confident in leadership that like there's a path out of this. They just seem to be like, well, I don't know. I watched some of Trump's speech tonight, and it was, he said tonight that at his rally that he instructed people to slow down their testing because the numbers didn't look good for him. And it's just like, yeah.
How will your daily life feel like 2 years from now?
Good question. I mean, 2 years from now, I hope that we're back, living a somewhat similar life to what we left behind in March. Now, our business will probably change, because I don't know how long it'll take. This is 13,000 square feet. A lot of it's event space. It's very dense co-working space for people that like 6 or 8 people join up at a table that may or may not know each other. Like, I don't know that comes back even with the vaccine. I think that people probably want more, like, they still want to be part of a community. I think everybody wants that. I think we notice that even more now that like we're not around our friends and family. I think, but it may be, like for us, we may do smaller co-working offices. We may do more offices inside there and less just open tables and things, at least for the next 4 or 5 years. And we'll see how quickly people are back to wanting to like gather in large groups. I've thought, like in me in particular, like because I have staff that run the offices, like I lead the company, but then we have a site manager in each location. Like, I don't really need to come in. I do because I want to know our members, and but like, I don't know that my presence in the office is required anymore. And part of me is thinking like, am I just another germ spreader if I do come into the office? Is it better for them and for me if I don't come in because I'm just doing my work there? But then also, like, as a business owner, like if I'm not coming in but I'm asking my staff to, am I like asking them to do something that I wouldn't do? And like that doesn't feel right. I've always like wanted to lead by example and that sort of thing. I don't know if that answered the question or not. But.
No, it did. Yeah. So in the challenges you see with the business, but also your community, what excites you about solving them? That's a good question. I'm trying to think it through. I'm not excited that the problems are here. It's not like I'm of a mind like, oh, cool, like an incurable pandemic. Let's figure out how the co-working industry contributes to that. Like, I'm not like energized by that. I feel like without an end to this in sight, I don't know that I am excited about solving them. I just kind of want them solved. You had mentioned events being disrupted. Driving in, I drove past the state fairgrounds. What's that feeling like, not having the Iowa State Fair?
You're going to out me as a not state fair person, which is unforgivable to some here. I did go last year, actually. I've probably been 5 times in my life. Last year was probably the first time as an adult that I went, and it was because I was on stage in an event, and it was at the state fair. People are real upset about it, though. The people that love the state fair love the state fair. They camp there for the entire thing. Have you ever been to the state fair? And I've been to the Indiana State Fair as well. Like, you have to like know the state fair to enjoy the state fair, because wayfinding is not great and things like that. And people like mention things by name that you're like, how would I ever find that barn? Like, you know what that barn is. But I do think that I follow some local economists that talk a lot about on Twitter about our economy, and they've said like state fair isn't really going to like hurt the economy of Iowa. Like it's going to hurt the people that have booths and stands and things there, because a lot of those people make their entire revenue in those 2 weeks or whatever. I'm more concerned about what happens with like football in the fall. And, sports are being played here for the summer, but a lot of schools opted out. I think I saw on the news last night that like one school had a bunch of cases, like positive cases, so they just canceled on the spot. Like they were starting and then people on the team got it. And it's just like, I've had football tickets for 20 years at Iowa State. Like I'd already paid for next year's tickets before this started. So it's like, do I want to go sit with 60,000 people in a stadium that, like I can control like my friends that I sit with and my family, but like the people behind me, like who knows if they're taking precautions or what. So, and that's just that's our fall. Like as a family, like we kind of plan everything around football Saturdays, and like we travel other places when there's not like we go do things with my parents and stuff when there's not a football game. So like that feels like more of a disruptor to our life than the state fair. But again, I'm probably just not the right state fair guy. Did I break your heart?
No. It's great. All right. So going back to the 1 to 2 words, how would you describe? What 1 to 2 words describe how you would feel, or how you feel about the next 5 years? So 1 to 2 words describing how you feel about the next 5 years.
No context, just whatever. Okay. Hopeful, I guess. I'll say that's the one word, hopeful. The reason being, like, not a big supporter of the current administration. So the next 5 years, knock on wood, could be like correcting what's happened the last few years, rebuilding the government, things of that nature. And I think the Black community and like what we've been seeing with these protests are actually generating results that like I've been really ignorant of what some of those struggles have been in my life, because I'm a white dude in the Midwest. Like it's a position of privilege. So it's really neat to see that community standing up and kind of getting people to listen. So like maybe there'll be like actual systemic change because of that. So I think there could be like really good things on the horizon, but that's pretty optimistic look. Like we still have to get through the big problem that is today. Like I think the virus impacts all this. So assuming that the promises of, like first quarter next year, whatever it's called, the vaccine, that's something like, and that we can start to go back, like putting the country back together again on all these fronts, things that have existed for 400 years beforehand in the last 4 years and things like that. Like there's probably a lot of opportunity in that for people. And as long as the will is there to collectively to kind of move forward, like I think we could really see some change for the better. None of that's guaranteed, of course. Like all of this could go away, current administration could stay. I have a lot of concerns about what that looks like if there's not the threat of like your next election. Like as far as we've gone outside the norms of the presidency, like man, that could sure go way different than the last 4 years of an 8-year term. But
so is there a question that I should have asked you but I didn't?
that's a good one. It's a good one for an interview too. Anytime you interview someone, that's a good one to ask. Probably not off the top of my head though. I have to think about that.
Fair enough. So again, this is however you want to interpret it. What message for those who are watching this from wherever they are, because it is on the internet.
This is gonna be on the internet?
This will be on the internet.
Oh man.
A bulletin board. What message would you like to share with those watching?
Man, they're certainly of the time, but like, I've been really encouraged, as I kind of said with the last question, but like protests are getting results, and I don't know. So like that message, like stand up for what you believe in, and obviously we've seen that with like what's happening in Minneapolis and the like Minneapolis City Council saying they are actually going to rebuild the police department there. So like if not for these protests, that would continue on. We've actually seen it in Iowa. It was something that I didn't expect. And it was the Black Lives Matter group that's organized a lot of protests here, including in the state capitol. Iowa is the absolute worst state for felons to live in after they've completed their like ex-felon. It's the only state where they have to like petition individually to be able to get their voting rights back. In the past, Florida has been that way, Virginia has been that way, Kentucky's been that way. They've all corrected it, but we haven't. And our governor here has been very vocal in the last two legislative sessions that she wants an amendment to the Constitution to enshrine that right that they can have that back. But she always stops short of saying she can grant that to them at any point because it's by executive order that they can't. And it's not her executive order, it's the previous governor's, but she's kept with that. And the Black Lives Matter group that's been protesting in the Capitol got her this week to acknowledge, because she wouldn't acknowledge that she had that power, even though a previous Democratic governor had granted that, and then a Republican came in, Terry Branstad, governor for life, came back and took it away. So I think they were given the right to vote in 2005. Branstad came in, and in 2011 he revoked it, and then it's been revoked for that entire time. So she kind of wouldn't even like say that like, oh yeah, I could write an executive order. She just kind of would say like, they should be able to vote, but like change the Constitution, which has to pass the legislative house twice in two separate sessions and then go to a popular vote to actually do a constitutional change. So it was kind of like she could advocate for something that was probably not going to happen. Like that's such a big hurdle to get to when she had the power at any point to just change it. So that group has been protesting, and one day they got her to admit that she could change that, which I hadn't seen her do on the record. And then the next time, that was like a Friday, and then she said she would meet with them on Monday. She said that she will sign it before the November election this year. So like that wasn't going to happen if those protesters weren't protesting in the Capitol. So it's like you see this on the news, but like this is an issue right here in this city, for the state, for all those people that are affected by it. And so I think that like it's very of the moment, but yeah, protests actually do something. And like I wasn't alive in '68, like I don't know those types of things, but it's cool to have observed, because I haven't been a part of those protests, but to have kind of observed people standing up for that and actually seeing results. And so talking about that a lot with my kid right now, that type of thing, as far as what's happening. And so that would be my message. Way to go.